bum 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 ba da da da. It's back, and that was so lame. Master League Premier is back. This has been one of the more anticipated metas we've had for a while because it has been out of rotation for so long, and it just opens up Master League a lot more than what you can get when there are legendaries and mythicals allowed. So in these videos, we take a look at the basics of any incoming Go Battle League meta in just 6 minutes. So let's cut straight to the chase. There's basically 6 Pokemon that are going to define the meta in our humble opinion, and they are Dragonite, Florges, Gyarados, Annihilate, Shadow Snorlax in particular, but regular can do some work as well, and a bit further down, Metagross. So let's take a look at each of them individually. We've got the Dragonite with its wonderful balance of charged attack and fast attack pressure, and it's got like the stat product and the firepower to make even some of those bad matchups like a lot nicer. Like a lot of people use Gyarados as their dragon counter, but like there are situations in which a Dragonite can beat a Gyarados, and it's also got superpower for the steals, so like Metagross isn't like super comfortable against it. Excadrill is, I think, technically a win for Dragonite in the one shields, so there is so much that a Dragonite can do there. Florges doesn't have any right to be as good as it is, right? But check this out. In the one shields against the Master League Premier meta, just from a standing start, Florges has a win rate of 27 and 12, which isn't great. It isn't world beating, right? You give it 2 Fairy Winds of energy lead, that goes up to 22 and 8, just off of 2 Fairy Winds. Now there is baiting involved in a lot of those matchups, but the synergy of Fairy Wind, Disarming Voice, and Moonblast is so nice, and like with some smart play, like Florges is a high skill Pokemon. Like it's a relatively high degree of difficulty to overcome some of those bad matchups, but like it has a lot of tools in its belt to handle that. Gyarados, kind of like Dragonite, it is safer than you think. Like it doesn't automatically lose to fairies even though it's running Dragon Breath, and also Waterfall is an option as well if you want to really shore up a lot of the ground type options, which in previous versions of Master League Premier there were a lot of ground types around. Might be a bit less this time, but they will still definitely be there. I would probably run Dragon Breath over Waterfall, but even with Dragon Breath, like those fairy matchups aren't the worst thing in the world. It's, in fact, it does so well that if it comes against an Ursaluna running Thunder Punch, the Ursaluna does win in the ones, but with 3 HP left. So any chip from another Pokemon and Gyarados will win that one, which is pretty big, right? Then you got Annihilate, which is the new darling of the meta, and it is so good. Nothing can wall it. It's like, it's got the least resistance in the way of hard counters around. Like even the fairies, like they generally don't want to take 2 Shadow Balls. And there are, what also makes Annihilate really good is that there are a few Pokemon in the meta that it can just one shield counter down through to build up a whole bunch of energy. Things like Excadrill, things like Magnezone. So Annihilate is very dangerous for that reason. Snorlax isn't great against Annihilate as well, particularly if it's running its typical moveset of Body Slam and Superpower. Now, having brought up Snorlax, the Shadow, like I said, is much better than the regular, and it's basically a very general pick. It's the Lickitung of Master League, essentially. So you can kind of slot it into most teams, and it will do fine. And then Metagross, the main reason for Metagross is it's your fairy counter, a very hard fairy counter, and its biggest threat in like Excadrill, and probably to a well, I mean, Garchomp is a big threat to it as well, but both Excadrill and Garchomp just have a little more opposition now, which are going to make them a lot harder to run. You've got other interesting Pokemon that are added to the menu here this time around, such as Feraligatr and Skeledirge. Now, For Alligator, probably not going to be the best, because like it still loses to a Shadow Dragonite in the ones, because it can't get to that second move. Even if it bases with a Hydro Cannon, it doesn't get to the second move to Ice Beam it to death. Skeledirge is going to be very, very interesting. Skeledirge needs energy to be good. It loses against Dragonite. From starting energy, it loses very poorly to Dragonite in all shield situations, but all even shields anyway. But with energy in tow, it can start doing a lot of work. It is one of the few things that can take on a core, and I guess we'll talk about this now, the core of Annihilate and Florges. Annihilate and Florges go together extremely well. If you can build both of these Pokemon, 100% do it. We are saying it now. Like, build those two Pokemon and put them together. I like Gyarados as a third. We were talking in our complete breakdown about about Snorlax maybe being the third as well, but those two go together incredibly well. And that's it. Look, now this was just a basic breakdown of the meta. If you want to take a look at a complete breakdown of the meta, I had a chat with World Championship qualifier Lyle Jess III. You can check out the link to that live streamed chat in the description of this video, or you can click here. But in the meantime, may the leads be in your favor.